Okay, we're learning. All right, so today we're going to do multiplying and dividing integers, which is much easier than adding and subtracting integers. Hopefully you remember it from last year. Now the good news, it is easier. The bad news, once you get these rules in your head, then you have your adding and subtracting rules in your head, and they're different, so it kind of becomes a mess, right? But we're going to practice. Okay, so first of all, if the signs are the same, the answer is positive. So, and again, this is for multiplying or dividing. So I have two multiplication problems here. A lot of times when you're multiplying in algebra, they're using parentheses. So 3 times 4 would be a positive 12. But a negative 3 times a negative 4 would also be a positive 12, right? Same sign. If you see something that looks like a fraction, remember that's dividing. So 16 divided by 8 is 2. Negative 16 divided by negative 8 is also 2. So same sign, positive. I'm sure you can guess then. Different signs will give you a negative answer. So you can see they're the same digits here that I used in the other problem. It doesn't matter which one is the bigger digit or anything like that. If they have different signs, the answer is negative. So both of these would be negative 12, regardless. And then both of these would be negative 2, okay? So that's all that matters is, are the signs the same or are the signs different? So you can decide if the answer is positive or negative before you actually do any math whatsoever. So that's really nice. All right, so let's practice this a little bit. Now again, I said that you can decide whether a problem is positive or negative before you actually do any of the work. So in this first problem, is our answer going to be positive or negative? Positive. The signs are the same. Is this going to be positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. Signs are different. This? Negative. Signs are different. Now, I wrote them different ways just so you can kind of see that you might have multiplication with the dot, you might have multiplication like a normal multiplication sign, but notice you have parentheses there to separate things, but you might just have parentheses. All right, so you're going to have to do a little bit of work. 8 times 13, that'd probably be easier to do 13 times 8, right? Some of you can do that in your head. 104?
Yep.
Now, when you have a positive number, I don't mind if on your paper, if you would have a positive sign, but when we're putting stuff into Google Form, because we have to practice it that way this year, don't use a positive sign, okay? Don't use positive signs on Google Form. This one would be a negative 170.
So it's just the same but different, like the same.
Did someone just say it's like the same but different?
No, it's like the same. No, it's like the same with symbols.
It's the same with symbols.
It's just the same as normal multiplication.
Yeah, it's just the same as multiplying. Yeah.
Your second answer says no.
14 times 9, let's see, it's 36. So a negative 126. Yeah, once you decide if the answer is positive or negative, then you just multiply, all right? So there's not any difference there.
Your second answer says no.
It kind of does.
And you do the same.
All right, here we have some examples of division. Now, again, in algebra, a lot of times you see division written in fraction form, but they sometimes can still use the old school division sign. All right, so again, I would check to see, is your answer going to be positive or negative? So this first one, positive or negative?
Negative.
Okay, the second one?
Negative.
And this one? Negative. They're all, in all of them, they're all different signs, okay? None of them have like the same sign for both integers. So now you just divide. 75 divided by 3?
25.
Okay, that's like money, right? So a negative 25. This one, 126 divided by 9.
14.
Okay, so 9 goes into 12 one time. You'd have 3 left over, 36, that's 14. I'm sure that's how some of you did it in your head, right? Do you kind of visualize doing long division in your head? No?
That's what
Okay, if you need, some of you need to write it down, and that's fine. But if you're able to do it in your head, like I'm thinking 9 goes into 12 one time, and I write down the 1. And then I'm like 12 minus 9 is 3. That's 36. Bring down my 6. That's 36. So 9 goes into 36 4 times. If you aren't comfortable doing it in your head, then don't. Like this one, I'm not going to do that one in my head. Well, really, you know what I would do? I would think, what could I multiply 4 by to get something that ends in a 0? 4 times 5, right? So would that work for us? And then, have you ever done this?
Oh, that actually would work.
In your head. If I wanted to try 24 times 5 in my head, have you ever said, well, what's 20 times 5 and what's 4 times 5?
120.
Look at that.
100 plus.
Oh, I don't want 120 there. I wanted,
I want
5.
it says 120.
I'm not saying you have to do it that way. I'm just trying to give you guys some more strategies because your brains can usually handle that. If you need to do 120 divided by 24 long division over at the side, then so be it.
In a way, this kind of is easier than adding and subtracting.
Oh, it's way easier than adding and subtracting. Way easier than adding and subtracting. All right, so let's talk about if you have more than 2 integers in a problem. All right, if you have more than 2 integers in a problem. If you have an odd amount of negative signs, the whole answer is going to be negative. If you have an even amount of negative signs, the answer is going to be positive. So this is kind of another little trick that you can use. It's not really something that you have to memorize, but again, it's a trick. So, for instance, this one.
That would be.
You have an even amount of negative signs, so your answer would be a positive answer. We'll figure that out in a second. Now, if you don't want to use a shortcut, you could go ahead and do 9 times negative 11, and then get that answer, negative 99, and then negative 99 times negative 4, and that'd be a positive answer, right? Down here we have even or odd amount. Odd amount. So if there's an odd amount of negative signs, the answer is going to be negative. Right? And again, you can break it into pieces. Let's go ahead and find this. So we said this was 99, and this would be 99 times 4. Any strategies for doing that in your head, 99 times 4?
You do 100 times 4 and then minus 4.
Good. So if you said, all right, let's say 100 times 4, that's 400, but I need to take 1 away for each one of those, so minus 4, 396. Again, if it's a positive number, don't include that positive sign into your Google form. All right, on this one, we could say 8 times 12 is 8 times 10, 8 times 2, add them together, 96. Notice I'm not paying any attention at all to my positive, negative signs because we already decided what our answer was going to be. 96 times 3. Again, break it into pieces if you want to do stuff in your head. 90 times 3, 6 times 3, 288. Sometimes people are like thinking I really do all this just in my head like I'm a calculator, and trust me, I'm not. I have met some people that are, I call them human calculators, but there's not many people that are. Most people, and a lot of you, know little tricks that can help you. Again, if you don't like using the little tricks, then write it out to the side like the normal way, okay? You don't have to use these tricks. What about this one? Do you think it'd be a positive or negative answer?
Negative.
We have, if we divide these two, we'd get a positive answer, right? And then a positive divided by a negative would be a negative. So again, if there's an odd amount of negatives, the answer is negative. If there's an even amount of negatives,
Positive.
the answer is positive. So let's do those real quick. So 120 divided by 4 is 30, and then 30 divided by 5 is, all right, so we have a negative 6. Down here, this one kind of has a combination of multiplying and dividing. 20 times 15, good, and 300 divided by 5, think about 30 divided by 5, 60. So it'd be a positive 60. Again, don't include that positive sign on your Google form. We okay so far?
Yeah.
Great. All right, mean, average. How do you find an average or a mean? Same thing. How do you find it?
You add how many numbers are in it.
All right, so the first
Add them
thing,
and then you divide.
good. So the first thing you want to do is you want to add up all numbers,
Divide by the amount of
All right.
numbers there were.
and then divide. What's the answer to an addition problem called?
Sum.
Then you're going to divide the sum, S-U-M, by the amount of numbers you have. So sometimes you see it called an average, sometimes you see it called a mean. Same thing, okay? Same thing. They mean the same thing, that's right.
They average the same.
So I believe this is our last slide. This was a pretty easy lesson. So it says, in a game of football, a team gains and loses yards each play. What is the mean yards lost or gained? Okay, so you can see we have 6 plays, and they gain 14, lose 2, blah, blah, blah. What do you think as far as integers, positive and negative numbers? Gain would probably be
Plus.
positive. So this would be a positive 14, positive 8, positive 7, positive 2. And a loss would be, all right, so if they lose 2, it'd be a negative 2. If they lose 17, it'd be a negative 17. Now, hopefully we know that you can add numbers in any order you want to, right? So I would make life easy on yourself. The first thing that I would do is I would add up all my positive numbers. Isn't that going to be easier? Okay. Yes. All right, so let's use some thought. I'm just focusing on the ones I circled, my positives. If you were going to group these to make it easier, what would you group? Maggie?
8 and 2.
All right, 8 and 2 would give me 10, and then are 14 and 7 pretty easy to group?
Yes.
They're both multiples of 7, right? 14 and 7 is 21, so 10 and 21 would give me 31. All right, now I'm going to combine these two negative. How many total yards did they lose? They lost a total of 19 yards. Now you just got to figure out what's 31 minus 19.
That's 12. It's 12.
Well,
It's
Wow. It is Friday.
so I'm really
12.
I think it's 12.
It's 12.
At least I got it right, even if it took 10 seconds.
Okay, now we're not done, because remember our first objective was add them all up. So that was us adding them all up, all right? Now you could have done it differently. You could have done 14 minus 2 is 12, 12 plus 8 is 20, 27, 27 minus 7. You could have done it that way, but you would have ended up with 12, okay? Again, strategies. So now that we have our 12, we have our sum, what are we dividing the sum by? 6. There were 6 numbers. So 12 divided by 6, so 2 is our answer. The average amount of yards was a 2-yard gain over these 6 plays. Okay, because it's a positive 2. All right, so that's it.
Ooh, yeah.